Miracle Lawn Medical Center.
Anthony Sutton, FOD.
Marvin Newman Medical Center.
Tim Quinn, Secretary of State.
We'll have officer roll call. Officer. You just wrote it down? Okay. All right.
I did the video.
All right.
They cut you back on time.
Well, this morning, we had a special treat. We had invited mayoral candidates from around the city, without invitation to all of them. There was a response from Andrew Jenkins. He stated that he would send representatives. There was a response from Rabbit. He stated that he would be here. There was a response from Zach Scott, and he stated that he would be here. And not to take their time, we're going to put them up first, and we still are. So that they don't have to, if they're busy, they don't have to stay any time long. But I want to say to you, those are the commitments. So the first group that is here is a group representing. So we're going to call them up. We're going to allow them to speak to you. And we also prep each office that we would ask them the question, how do you feel about privatization? And how do you feel about the sale of public assets? And that's very important to us at OSU. We had a parking lot sold, and we believe they're in the midst of the power plant. And we also believe that that is a way of funding the legislators to use in the future. So any candidate that occupies this office, we want to know how they feel in relationship to our concerns. So in saying that, I now want to invite the representatives. Well, he didn't just sit one, he did two. Up to speak for Andy again to answer that question. You come on up and speak to us.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Amy Staley. I actually, Staley. Yes. I am Andy Gither's political director, which means I haven't slept in about 5 hours. Fair warning, if I don't make any sense, ask me again. But I wanted to be here today to talk to you a little bit about Andy, because he would be here, except that he's kicking off the Kansas City Marathon. So when none of us can leave for the next hour and a half, you know who's the guy that kicks it off. I worked with Andy since 2011, when he assumed the council presidency, and since that time he's been working staunchly to oppose privatization. He will be the first to tell you that collective bargaining works in the city of Columbus. It's one of the things that we worked really hard to preserve when we had an income tax increase campaign where representatives from business and labor came together to try to preserve our quality of life. What we found was that labor leadership stepped up along with the membership of the business community, and through a lot of cost savings in concert with, instead of in opposition to, our friends in labor, we've saved millions and millions and millions of dollars. So Andy Gither was out in front when we had SB5. He was out marching. It wasn't just lip service. He's somebody that comes from a tradition of labor. His grandmother was one of 4 rubber workers up at BF Goodrich back in the day, and she one of my favorite stories is he was studying Northern Ireland in college, and he called her and she said, "Now, do you have your absentee ballot?" He's like, "Well, no, there's like a local levy issue on the ballot." She said, "I don't care. I'm going to have one sent to you." And so I'll never forget the day that he got his materials and his absentee ballot from his grandmother, making sure, so he never missed an election. But I can talk a lot and answer a lot of questions about Andy Gither and what he stands for and who he is and why he'll be a great mayor. But we figured that Dave McCune, who most of you I think probably have met, can tell you firsthand, because he has folks within the city and has had the opportunity to interact with Andy on a regular basis. And as he has said, he wouldn't be up at 7 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday for just anybody. So,
Good morning. My name is Dave McHugh. I'm a card-carrying, dues-paying member of Communication Workers of America. My current position is President, CWA Local 4502. We're sisters and brothers, okay? I'm talking to you like she said, she stole my line. I wouldn't have gotten up for 6 o'clock at 6 a.m. for anybody but a friend. And I will let you know that's how I feel about Andy Ginther. And I'm going to tell you my one and only Andy story, and I'm going to tell you how I define him as my friend. I want to go back and answer, I'm against the sale, and I will stand beside you, and my members will stand beside you in those sales also, and the sale of anything. We have proved time and time again as brothers and sisters in these unions that we can run more efficiently than anybody else. We know what happens inside our businesses. So, and I'm sure, I can't speak for Andy, but I'm sure he
I can.
feels exactly the same way as us. Now I'm going to tell you how Andy and I became friends. Does he invite me to his birthday? Nah. You understand, we send each other Christmas cards? No. We work together. Okay? Andy and I met in 2008, so it hasn't been that long ago. And Jamie started to speak about it. I was elected the nastiest election we've ever had in the history of 4502. More mudslinging, more name-calling, more separation in our union than any other time in our history. I was called in. I started because, just like happens here, we had 3 runoffs in the way the system works. I finally got to be vice president of that union in February of 2009. The election started in 2008. Okay, with all the re-elections and all that stuff that happened, it took me a year to get in office. My first job. Does anybody remember what happened in 2008? The crash. The crash. My first job was to go to Piedmont, that's one of our work centers in the city of Columbus, to process 400 employees to be laid off. A biblical proportion, you understand? Whaling law, I mean, they cleared 3 days. My first job was, I was supposed to soothe them. You know, I didn't have words. I didn't have no words. How could you tell somebody it's 27 years that you don't have a job? Mayor Coleman had a plan. Okay? He was going to turn the city around, and he was going to make it a better place for you and I, and for our families. He called labor together. Jack Reeves, at the time Jim Gilbert, FOP, me, CWA. We had AFSCME, 1632, AFSCME 2191. He wanted all these union leaders to be on a team. And that team, our job was to convince people, our workers, our neighbors, our friends, our family, that the city needed an income tax, 0.5%. And that's how we were going to be successful. Because in Q, we were losing police forces. We were losing fire forces. Everything was cut. And again, I just want to take you back to that time. Now, to make matters worse, the city had just came out with a study. Aon said that we made too much money. That we made 109% of what our value was. That they had, through the course of time, there was more value to us. So, all the labor leaders come here. A guy named Andy Ginther was assigned by Mayor Coleman to come and be his liaison to this team. So, again, Andy's first meeting was the same day that the Aon study came out. And over the course of this time, they were going to negotiate our benefits away. They were going to negotiate jobs away. They were going to do that's what this study told them to do. So, I'm sorry, it's a long story, but it's my only story, okay? But I want to show how important. So Andy comes in here, and I'm telling you, there was no love lost when he sat down at this table, because we had just gotten a report. We as labor leaders were going to lose everything. But we had to partner with Andy. And Andy has a half smile. You understand? When he sits down, you got to understand who Andy is. And my first seat was directly across from Andy. I'd only been on the job. Now, this is my second week, okay? The first week, I was telling 400 people they lost their job. Now I'm sitting across, I got to go tell my members when we are negotiating a contract, nobody wants to give us anything. We're at the table of 0, 0, 0. Okay, that's where we were at the table with that. We're sitting across the table. I got to go back to my members. Andy's sitting across there. He's got this little, and Jack Reel is just reaming, because they're going to lose the fire class. And he was telling them, no one will ever be elected in the city without the support of the IAFF. You will not win if you don't have the support. And he's got this crooked smile. I can appreciate that. I understand what you're saying. And the only way I can, Jack, for you to have this is you have to work together as a team. So this is where Andy comes in. For 6 months prior to that election, in November, every Tuesday, Andy came. He was sitting across the table. He was sitting across the table. He was not only getting hammered from us as labor, and he kept that crooked smile. I mean, he knew that he had to stay focused and he had a job to do. He was beside me. Every time I went out to do literature, every time we went out to do any kind of work, Andy was to my right. He was always there. He stood up. And I want to tell you what I learned about Andy. Andy loves the city of Columbus. He was doing it because he said, not on my shift. We were not going to fail. And the reason the city of Columbus is exactly where it's at today is the hard work of Andy Ginther and labor together. He knew he had to partner with us. Again, we were all going to win. He looks for those win-wins. We don't always get everything we ask for, but he works hand in hand. When I went out in the dirt, he was beside me. When I went into a neighborhood I didn't feel, he was beside me. He stood shoulder to shoulder with labor. And that's what we have to carry. I don't know what your politics are. I don't know who you are. But as a dues-paying CWA member, I would love for you to support Andy. Andy is the kind of guy who you're going to need his help. And he will give you that help. He will do everything he can to support you in any struggle that you have in the future. That's all I have to say.
I would just add, one of the things that I've had the opportunity now to work with Andy for what feels like forever, but it's only been 5 years. He's a guy that understands that there are circumstances beyond our control, but can build a coalition of folks to come together to have a conversation about what we need to do. And so, to your question, privatization, that's a very challenging thing, but it would be an absolute last resort within the Ginther administration. I think Dave has seen that. During the income tax campaign, Andy was out front and center, and so much so that when they did the debate at the CMC Club, he held up a picture of him in a superhero costume of some kind, and said this was the last time. I was this young the last time we had an income tax here in the city of Columbus. And everybody laughed, but it makes sense. And it was a tight election, but you look at the prosperity that we have now, what we've been able to do in relation to other cities in the country, and that's because of the collaborative environment that we have here in the city of Columbus. It isn't a lot of mudslinging among elected officials. It isn't a lot of hyperbole. This is really about bringing everybody together and being able to look somebody in the eye, and I think you've seen this, and Andy is saying, I can't get that done, but here's what I can do. And that's the kind of candor and I think integrity that we need in the mayor's office. I really look forward to him having an opportunity to come here and speak himself because he's a lot more eloquent than I am. Dave can come and speak for me anytime. But I just wanted to see any questions you all had, if there are any. Yeah.
I'm not that deeply into electoral politics, but I'm always kind of shocked when politicians come to the union meeting. Thanks, Kevin, for framing the question you did to the candidates ahead of time. I think it's really apt. And thanks to the people who appeared for answering the question in a forthright way. That's not always the response we get from politicians, which I kind of work at a distance from electoral politics for that reason. But Andy Ginther, I think I signed a petition up at Whetstone to get him on the ballot based on Mayor Coleman's endorsement, and he strikes me that way. But I notice his commercials, he's kind of like, I'm with little kids, that type of stuff. To me, it'd be a lot better if people knew the kinds of things you had to say about the candidate, because Ohio State's one of the area's biggest employers, if not the biggest employer. They're playing or threatening to play this privatization card as if it's normal within the economic system to do it, and it's predation. So it'd be nice to know if we're voting for candidates who support workers and workers' issues and the down-to-earth stuff we're trying to do. A lot of people aren't voting these days, which is stressful for everybody. But I think you two have spoken so eloquently about this candidate's interface with organized labor. That's extremely important. If it could happen in the media coming up to the election, it could change things for us at Ohio State here, dealing with a menacing employer that's attacking the union, and it could help the candidates. So thanks for coming.
Yeah. No, and I think too it isn't going to be perfect. Is it something where you can say in every situation, you can't move in that direction, but what you can say is that Andy's always going to be having a conversation. There's always going to be a dialogue, and you're always going to have an opportunity to work with folks. And I think what you'll see when you hop on our website is that we've been endorsed by IAF, by the firefighters, like teachers. There are a lot of local labor organizations that have stood with Andy because of the kind of leader that he is. So I really thank you for your time. I see we have another candidate coming in, and I want to make sure that...
We have our best out question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
My final question might just things about Andrew. I don't know if most of the guys were here when we went on strike, when we marched from here down to City Hall. The City Hall members, the first person to speak up for us, a lot of people wasn't paying attention to us coming in there ranting and raving, but Andrew Ginter did actually speak up, talked about his family that was a union family. The other person that spoke was Charlita Tavares. So I just wanted to put that out there.
And I'll leave some information here in the back for everybody to grab on their way out. That way you have more questions. There's a lot more detail than either Dave or I could provide in a couple minutes on a Saturday morning pre-coffee. But
The only thing I'm going to add is the first comment. I mean, I know that we got to get out, but the city council presented us. One of our large fights as a community, CWA community, is we were presented to stop the TPP. So us and coalition partners, about 13 or 14, come to the council. President Andrew Ginter actually signed that for us, and we had the petition, and it is great. So he stood for us again, as labor, because that's a bad thing. And anyone, we've all been at that fight. I mean, we've been doing this. I mean, that's what we've been doing. That's our fight, and we have a resolution now, and again, when cities like Columbus, put something like that in writing, they're standing with us. They're standing with us. So anyway, I just want to make sure you're aware.
all right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, we now have another candidate who is here, and that's Scott.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Would have dressed up a little bit more if I knew it was this formal. I'm going out to some bowling alleys, I'm going to some shops, I'm going to some diners. So, I wore my Johnny Cash shirt here today if I'd known this is going to be like this. But you're candidate for mayor on a Saturday morning.
If you got a question, we want to prep your comments.
Oh, you want to ask questions? Or?
I'm going to ask you a question.
Oh, go ahead.
To deliver to our members.
Okay, go ahead.
They want to know where you stand on the privatization and the selling off of the public assets. We are being faced with selling off of the cracking power plant here at the university. And we've already had to sell off parts of the city. Those actions, as well as the other actions, cost us jobs. So we as a union want to know where you stand on the selling off of public assets that we will borrow for public dollars, tax dollars, and where you stand on that relationship, the impact of that as a movement.
Well, I'm the only candidate that is a labor candidate. I'm the only one. When I say I'm the only one, I still pay my union dues today. I go to my union meetings today. My kids are labor union. If we could legally put a moratorium on something like that, we have to look at it, but yeah, it would not be for privatization and no way on that. We had, the whole thing with the parking thing upset a lot of people, even at the sheriff's office, we weren't directly involved with it, but that was, it doesn't run as smooth as it used to. There's all kinds of issues that you look at, you find out at the end of the day, if you follow the money, something's going on with the money, someone's making money on it. Not to beat up any other candidates, but, living wages. Where's living wages? That's outrageous.
Yeah, it is.
Now, not to beat up any candidates, but the candidate who's been down there for 15 years, they could vote on a living wage and get that done. Has he put that to a vote? No, he has not. I'll answer that for you. Has not. When we're living in a town where we have 22% poverty and 17% working poor, think about that for a second. 17% working poor.
Come on.
And then you got Mayor Columbus gets on the United Way video, which is the leadership video of 2014. United Way, you can look it up, go YouTube it. I try so much to let people say, this isn't me talking. Listen to the other people listen to Ginther talk about data rigging. Listen to his words if you go to Channel 10, and you actually listen to what he said to Paul Akers on Channel 10, said it wasn't a priority. And he shut it down. Those aren't my words. Those are his words. Then you listen to Mike Coleman, get on the YouTube video, get on the United Way 2014 leadership video, and say 1 in 3 families cannot put food on their table and a roof over their head on a consistent basis in Columbus. 1 in 3. Okay? Just stop and think for that a second. And for the last decade, poverty has went up almost 70% and continues to go up. And no sign of stopping. Yes, sir.
You know what? You just hit it right in the head.
Well, let him finish it while you...
Right, we're gonna let him finish.
So no, I've been a labor guy forever. I stand up here today, my family, my kids, they all know because they're labor people too. They know the quality of life that we enjoy is because we are labor. And that is an absolute fact. When I first started out in the sheriff's office, we were like $5.13 an hour.
That's when I started, 5:13 an hour.
$5.13 an hour. And you know what? If it wasn't for my labor, I wouldn't enjoy the standard of living I got today. And that was terrible. That was $2,000 a year. That was horrible. So you asking me, am I going to stand up for our labor? There ain't even a question. I'm going to stand up for our labor.
All right.
I'm going to stand up for
All right.
jobs back in this town. We don't have the right jobs. If you're not a person who is, in banking, if you're not in IT software, if you're not in insurance, what jobs you got that are paying well? Right. We have any.
Right.
And I was the only candidate that said, hey, I'm looking to be, and I know this had a lot of controversy with it, I'm the only candidate that said, I'm willing to take to the voters to put the schools under the mayor's authority. Why did I say that? Okay, well, because jobs and education go together. I'm an old guy. So when I was in school, I had machine shop, I had small engines, I had metal shop, we had wood. Right. We had stuff that you could actually learn how to get a craft going and continue doing that. Well, I've been talking to my labor guys because I talk to them all the time. And they're saying, Sheriff, I can't send kids over to cut lumber because they can't add fractions. What do you want me to do? And I'm like, what do I say to them? I'm like, so for me to say, I've got to be able to have some input, because right now, do you guys understand the mayor has zero input on schools? Right. No control. A lot of people are confused about that. Well, the mayor can do influence. The mayor can do that. Well, that education commission that cost us $7 million, how much influence do they have? None. They had all this advice. They come over and said, you need to do this, you need to do that. And the school board went, we ain't doing that. End of it. So, and I met with Gary Baker, and they're doing some things in the right direction, but they're so slow at it, we can't afford this. We can't allow this poverty to continue. So I would have to take it to the voters, and have the voters say, yes, Sheriff, or Mayor, this is what we want you to do. But we'd have to get the model that's right for us, and then start getting, because labor guys want to come into schools. They want to get my plumbers, my pipe fitters, the electricians, the construction guys, the sheep. They want to come into schools, but schools never let them. And I'm dealing, as law enforcement, I'm dealing also with people before me, this idea, we're trying to get pamphlets and start reaching to our kids when they were 14, our minority kids, and saying, there is about 7 years away, you're getting ready to have an opportunity for a great job in law enforcement. An awesome job. They want them in schools. They want them there. Because everybody goes to college. It makes it sound like you ain't going to go to college. Well, 70% of the people who live in Columbus and Franklin County don't have a college degree. Okay, let's wake up and just be honest about it. Doesn't mean you don't have to be successful. Doesn't mean you can't run your own business. So, I don't know, I just went on a big rage there. So I'm sorry.
That's all right.
I'm absolutely going to make sure that doesn't happen if I'm the mayor. So I don't know if that answered your question or not. Yes, sir.
Okay, this is actually problem, which is true. We've got all our people in Franklin County, Columbus, that exactly the exact poverty level. But then you look downtown, Nationwide Arena area, through High Street, you got all these high dollar lofts. Okay, that's like over $1,000, $100,000. Who can afford to buy, who can afford to live in a loft?
People get tax evaded,
You know,
and then they come and ask you for your tax money. Do you know that the downtown areas you're talking about, the condos,
yeah,
that are down there just got another 10-year extension on their tax abatements?
yeah.
right.
Did you guys know that? 10 years.
No, I didn't know that.
And one of them, and this is facts, is the mayor's.
That's not even right.
Well, it's the mayor's condo. You got tax abatement for another 10 years. So I'm not trying to beat anybody. I'm just stating facts. These are simple facts that are out there. You can look them up. So, and what they'll do, because in 2017, the schools are out of money again. They're going to be $70 million in the hole.
Right.
Guess what they're going to do? Can anybody here guess what they're going to do next move?
Raise our taxes.
You got it. You're 100% right. That's the only solution they got. Let's get Nationwide is a great company. $1.4 billion in profits last year. They spent $250 million of your taxpayer dollars to bail them out. $250 million, and they never even gave you a vote because they knew if they gave you a vote, you'd say no, because every time we've had a vote concerning the arena bailouts and things of that nature, we voted no. So Andy and those guys did a backdoor deal, $250 million, and he sold a dollar parking lot for $1.
Yeah, I heard that.
Yeah, and actually, he got some good campaign contributions. So, this is all facts. These are all simple facts. So, yeah, when I get to be your mayor, are we going to continue doing tax abatements or not? We'll do tax incentives if you're going to bring in strong paying jobs. That's going to be long-term jobs, absolutely, because we got to bring those in. My job as your mayor, to me, get the jobs, bring the jobs here, get our wages up, get the poverty down. If I can get the poverty down, get the right jobs in here, have some input in school, guess what's going to happen to over 300 shootings we had in the city of Columbus last year? They're going to start going down. So that's kind of my whole platform of what I'm working on. And the reason I got into this is because I'm a sheriff, and it's about safety. And I kept looking at safety going, good Lord, I've been in this game for 30 years, and it doesn't seem like it's changed. We keep putting Band-Aids on things. It doesn't seem like it's, and so I'm looking at really the foundation of the problem, what's crumbling. It's our jobs. It's the poverty. And I'm looking at our school situation. I'm like, Lord have mercy. So when this all of a sudden came open, that I could have the opportunity to actually have a bigger impact, a footprint on something large, because the city of Columbus, it kind of like affects the suburbs, it affects the county, it affects the townships. So when this came open, I said, it's time to step up and bring some strong leadership to the table, which I have. I'm a problem solver, I'm a public servant, and that's when I said, all right, let's get our team together. That's why I'm running for mayor. So anyway, all right, let's take up too much of your time. Any other questions I can answer?
I just wanted to
Yes, ma'am.
expand on the Medicaid thing I talked about. Not only did I qualify for Medicaid, but last year I worked enough overtime to double my salary. So I had to work overtime and still qualified for Medicaid. So something's not right here.
Now, do you have any kids?
I have 4 kids and me. I'm a single mom.
Now how much now I'm not beating you up, but how much parenting do you get to do when you're working
I
all
hardly
over?
get to do any.
See?
I'm lucky that I have 8 kids altogether, but I have 4 that are out of the house grown, and my grown kids help me with my younger kids.
What would you do without that?
I couldn't do anything. I'd be even worse off than I am right now.
You're working for, and it's terrible.
Yeah,
And it's been
and
going
I
on.
cannot survive on
And
a
it's
40-hour
because of
week.
those wages.
Yeah,
Okay, well, you're going to have a leader that's going to speak to those wages.
and I have a very high responsibility job. I mean, I'm hauling our basketball team, our football team, our soccer team. I'm hauling groups, all kinds of groups from OSU, stuff like that when I'm working, and I get barely anything for doing that.
Hang in there.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me, everyone. Thank you.
First thing I want to say is, I think you had two really outstanding presentations. And I think they also spoke to what is germane to us. I think they really hit home. Their thoughts, their comments, their sentiments, working for. If we get right down to it, and that is many of us, many of the folks who serve in this role. As I'm concerned, they hit a home run. I hope you were listening. But those are also the issues that we have to fight for every day. This fight for we need to address, speak about as environment today. The same issues that you need to speak about, as we too look for a coalition to help us do the things that we need to do, which I will speak further about. We've got those businesses we need to take care of, so I'll speak further about in about 5 minutes. But first we have to do something. I'm standing up here because on Thursday, former President Tim Quinn resigned. According to our bylaws, that means the Executive Vice President assumes the role of President. After that occurs, according to our bylaws, the President gets to appoint or fill office. But those appointments first are taken to the E-Board. And they're taken to the E-Board, they're brought to the membership. And that's you. So we're going to talk about those appointments and look for really for you to approve them. I'm not telling you to approve them, because that's your choice. But I will inform you who's been selected, and then you can make your decision. On Thursday, we appointed the gentleman who was the elected Executive VP, Jason Lacy, and we placed him, as I moved up to the President's office, we appointed him into the Executive VP spot. It was approved by the E-Board, but now needs to be approved or disapproved by you. So I'm asking your vote on the approval of Jason Lacy to become the Executive Vice President. So all in favor of that motion? I need a motion passed to vote on that. All those second. We got 6 people out here. You got David, you got Stoney, you had Newman, you had Miracle, you had David. I know about this, but you know we had a whole slew.
Okay, who did the motion?
We'll say Tony Tucker. You need a second.
Seconded.
That's 10 points.
Okay, now call.
All those in favor of Jason Lacy being Executive VP can vote with the sound of aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, sound of nay. Now, motion has passed. Then, during the election cycle and election process, the VP of the Secretary of State resigned. Amy Stumble was her name. That seat open. Tim Quinn was appointed to fill the seat of the VP. That's what I would campaign for it. They said I'd be wrong to do that. But, so I need a motion to really accept him as Secretary of State. And I have Lisa, I have Tony, I have Miracle. I'll say Miracle. I got Lynn, and I got what y'all about. Miracle. We'll say Miracle. I need a second. I got Homer as a second.
Homer, what's your last name?
Mercer, M-U-S-S-E-R.
All those in favor of that appointment, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay or the same sign. Hearing that, the motion passed.
Okay. Now, this is your report.
Yep. We are going to have a president's report. We are in negotiation. And as I said, the candidate hit it dead on the head. We are being safe. Really what we believe will be the toughest negotiations that we have had in probably 14 years since we went out on strike. We know that privatization is a threat to everything that we do, and to every job that is here on this campus. And I want to say to you that we need each and every one of you to join us in fighting for really truly a way of life. It's really even bigger than just our jobs. We're fighting to actually stop the worst of the poor, to stop the race to the bottom. We need you to help us form coalition. Each and every one of you knows someone that will be affected if you no longer make or employ at the university. Each and every one of you have some places that you take your dollars to, whether it be your favorite grocery store, your church house, your synagogue, your temple, where you go get your hair done. There are people who depend on your dollar to continue to survive and continue to exist. Those people, those businesses, those entities will be severely impacted if you are not making wages. Also, I have our member here talk about Medicaid and qualifying for it. We talk about a tax base that is already strapped. If we lose our jobs, that burden gets heavier. That burden gets even worse on local governments. There are so many people who will be affected if it costs you, if you don't have a job. So we need to bring them into the fight also. And so those are the things that we plan to do. And one of the things that we're going to have, we call a boot camp. The boot camp is where you come in and we will teach you how to speak to and how to frame the conversation and relationships to the battle that we are facing. Our first boot camp will actually be this Friday from 4 to 6 p.m. right here in this hall. I'm looking for at least 40 people to come into this room. And CWA is going to send out an individual to train us on how to frame this conversation, on how to go out to the general public and speak about what we're facing. I don't have 40 people in this room, but I need you to sign up if you can. If that's something that you're able to to do, I need you to sign up to be one of those first 40 trained. When we get to 40, we'll stop there. But if you can't do it, then I need you to go back to your workplace on Monday morning or later on today or on Sunday and get somebody else to volunteer to come and be trained on how to help us in this fight. We've begun to work with the Minnesota Alliances around town, the student associations around town. They too want to help us in this fight. And we need a broad coalition. We need politicians, we need your local leaders, your local trustees, we need your neighbors. We need them all to turn back what we are facing. So we're asking you to step up, to help us, to call your state senators, to call your state representatives, and ask them to stop this privatization. Ask them if they know that those assets are being stolen. Tell them that's affecting you who voted for them. And we'll show you how to do that. So before you leave, there are things I want to happen. That table, you're interested in learning how to frame this conversation and be a participant in that boot camp. I need you to sign up. This Friday coming from 4 to 6 p.m. right here in this hall. Also, today, as I say, we're joining the coalition. There'll be a sitting. We'll be in the student union. We're being filmed. People are watching. So I don't want to say everything, but there will be a sitting that we'll talk about how OSU treats work. I'll be there speaking. We need to do these things. Sit-in is also at 4 o'clock today. 4 o'clock. We're being ran by the Ohio Student Association, at the Ohio Student Union, right there on High Street. And we'll go from 4 to 6, and we'll go marching down High Street afterwards. We marched through the short north yesterday, demanding a living wage and fair work. The union and labor rallied the restaurant workers there were not getting proper wages, don't have a living wage. Many of them not even having a minimum wage, 30. So we're working with others and they're working with us. But we need to stand with them as we ask them to stand with us. And so I would say that, at many of these campaigns, and I have to be honest with you, it's 4 or 5 of us. There needs to be more of us as we ask them to come and scream for us, to holler for us, to protest for us. Because this is our fight. Dave McClure is going to send his people, I don't have any doubt. When we reach out to them locally, they're going to send their people. I don't have any doubt. No doubt. I need OSU employees to be there, to participate in our own liberation. We have a duty to be there, to fight for our cause, our right. Because the others are coming. They're lining up every day to help us fight. So, my challenge is to you all. Get your co-workers, get your neighbors, get your church members, get your buddies, your fight buddy, your bowling buddy, I don't care what it is, your girlfriend, to come and fight with you, to fight with us. That's the challenge. That's the challenge. All hands on deck. All hands on deck. All hands on deck. So we will be sending out text messages, emails, also before you leave here. We need your email addresses at the back table. Not your OSU email, because we don't know who checks that. We need your private at the back table. So that when we tell you that there's a rally, that there's a campaign, that there's a sit-in, that there's a move or action that is occurring, and you may get a 2 or 3 day notice, at least you'll have opportunity to mobilize and move. We have to be a group that is able to move at a minute notice because we are fighting for our jobs in mirror ways. We're being replaced by students, contractors, students, temp services, plus the government also, the entities that the university owns. And if you work in dining service, you know that students are a threat. If you work over at FOD, you've seen private contractors come in and move you out of buildings as far as custodians are concerned. You've seen them. Take 5, 6 buildings. Everybody is being replaced for a lower wage. They don't have to pay your health care. So they have to pay you a pension. If you don't have a job that's paying you a health care and pension, it severely impacts our way of life in our future. In the future, you may have plans and things you may have planned to do with your grandchildren. And I got 5 of them. Matter of fact, I got 6. So I got some plans. And it does include that retirement to do some things with my grandbaby. It's impactful. The university believes that they are not competitive because they have to pay your retirement or pay into your retirement. They believe that they can't compete with other entities, and especially from the medical portion. I've said in meetings, and they don't believe that they have the ability to be competitive, to compete with Aetna, Medicare, Blue Cross, and Blue Shield, and other medical plans out there because they consider themselves strapped with the burden of paying for your pensions and your health care, and that makes them non-competitive in that market. So if you're non-competitive, and they feel one of the things that are bearing them down, you have to find a way to cut it. So you need to know that. It's real. I also want you to understand, really they're a corporation. It's not a university. There's a big business, and it's about the bottom line. Everything they do is about the bottom line. So we have decided that they are not a corporation, or that they are a corporation, but actually they're a university, or they're a corporation masquerading as a university. Telling people they're about higher education. But at the end of the day, they don't know how much profit they have. It's profit driven. And they hide behind everything being for the student, for the benefit of the student, for the betterment of the college experience. We challenge them, because we're often charged with the slogan of student life is creating an extraordinary experience. That's the slogan. We're charged with giving and creating an extraordinary experience. So I challenge them that you too deserve an extraordinary experience. And what are they doing that says that you lack? Why do we have a mother who's working overtime, and worked twice as many hours overtime, and yet she still qualifies for Medicaid? You believe that she's having an extraordinary experience? Do you believe that her children don't miss her at home, or something is lacking, some oversight? Don't we deserve the extraordinary experience, especially if we are to create it? Don't you deserve it? Don't you deserve a better wage, better health care, better security, Don't you deserve a job that won't tell you to move from first shift to third shift? How are we going to move? And how are you all going to help us move? And how are we going to take that message to the people in the streets and to the community? That we are not experiencing the extraordinary. How do we do that? How do we share this impact? How do we tell people how this affects us? And ultimately, how it will affect the rest of Central Ohio, these things are our impact. You learn some of that on Friday, for 6. That it has to happen. It has to happen. So I will tell you here, begin to prepare yourself for a fight, but also one that we will not, cannot, shall not, because all of you going to get in it, lose. We cannot, shall not, will not lose. Because too much depends on it. And when you leave here, no matter what it looks like, you cannot, shall not, will not lose. It's impossible. I was speaking to one of the candidates, and I laughed because they had sent 2 people. And she said to me, doesn't it say whenever 2 of you get together that, he is in the midst? And I had to giggle. Because I was complaining about the numbers that was here. And she said 2. And I started counting you off. So therefore, there's more than 2. There's more than 4. There's more than 6. There's more than 8. If he's in the midst of 2, that means he's in the midst of us. Since he's in the midst of us, then I know he can't fail. And I believe that. I believe that. I believe that. We won't fail. We will be successful. I didn't say it's going to be easy. But we won't fail. So I'm glad that it never is. And I'm encouraged already. But I can't do it without you. Can't be moved without you. Also, I will also say that we are in contract negotiations, but our sister unit, SOS, will be in soon. And they too are in a battle. And we have to become one body. And if they're in a battle, that means we're in a battle. And they're marching with us, and we're going to march with them. Our arbitration award was awarded to SOS for back pay and wages, probably over a 3-year period, over a 3-year period. Of course, the state opposed it. And now it's coming before a judge. And they're going through negotiation that lingers over, that puts a cloud over that process. Whatever it takes. We're also going to talk about that. We're going to speak about it. We're going to tell the community. We're going to beat the drums. They need us to march outside. We're going to march outside. Because that's CWA. That's labor. And we're labor. And really and truly, this is a part about democracy. People don't say it. They don't think about it. What we are doing is defending democracy in America as we know it today. I've been told I'm running my mouth too long. I have to pass a motion to I'm therefore with that, we pass the motion, Wayne, second, all in favor, aye. All those opposed, no sign. Thank you. But we are fighting for democracy. We spoke about it, walking the street for short walk, as we marched in the chain down short walk last night, 50 signs in the air demanding $15 an hour living wage in Columbus. If labor goes down, and there's a fight for labor compensation, you'll learn that in boot camp. And the wage structure is lost. We like to say that we built, established the middle class in America. So the middle class is in crisis. They want two groups. Super rich, a term that we don't like to use, peasants. And I mean that, peasants. TPP, Trans-Pacific Partnership, city ordinance that we got where Columbus came out against it. But in that trade deal, the partners of Vietnam, the Philippines, and many of the others, they made cents out. 28 cents an hour. You can't compete with that. You can't come close. So the job lead, as Zach spoke about, in our neighborhood is devoid of people working because they send all the jobs that where they get it done for 28 cents and 78 cents an hour. It destroys our communities, our cities, our towns. We are being attacked every way. We have to become extremely politically conscious because the things that we win at the bargaining table, we lose at the State House. And right now, Congress is in the midst of trying to pass something called TPP. And the partners and the countries inside of TPP actually have so much authority that the laws in your nation no longer matter. And who would do that? But that's what they're doing. It literally speaks that if a law is passed in your state or your nation or whatever that affects their business, they can sue your nation for money because it is affecting their ability to make money. That's in the law. Takes away all of our rights. And that's a trade law. We are fighting for democracy. We like to shout, what does democracy look like? That's some things we check walking up and down the street. Really, truly, it looks like you. We shout back, this is what it looks like, but it looks like you. And if you wanted to continue looking like you, you got to do it right. Because it's both on the job, it's off the job, it's in the labor hall, it's at the State House, it's at boot camps. We've got to learn how to fight. And remember, because we've got some somber looks on our face, we can't lose. I mean, we can't lose. The enemy is strong, but our strength in labor is we have numbers. They have dollars. But we got labor. And labor strength is always boots on the ground, boots, people making phone calls, people sending emails, people making telephone calls, people willing to rally. We put boots on the ground. And that's our strength and our advantage. We can't lose. Can't lose. We can't lose. I can talk forever about it, so I'm going to actually stop right there. Entertain any questions that you might have. And talk to me so that we can move forward in what we need to do. So that concludes the President's report. Can we get a motion to close up Kevin's mouth? Got Miracle back there. She has some literature that we need to pass on. Yeah, how many of you got?
I can copy them.
Okay.
It's about the walk,
It's about business night?
the one on the Halloween.
I spoke to him about it.
Oh, okay. So do you want me to copy it?
You got it. Second the motion?
No,
I need a second.
okay.
I have a second from Lynn and Lisa Kim. All in favor? All opposed, by the same sign? It's been concluded that I need to shut up. And David now is ready for questions.
I have kind of a comment, and it's probably also kind of a question. I don't think you need to shut up. I think your words were really fine, and I appreciate hearing them. One of the things I think everybody here has to think about, and you're kind of preaching to the choir here, because everybody who showed up is obviously really concerned about unions and our issues, and I thank everybody for coming. One thing we have to think about, I believe, is the experience of most of the membership in this local. Our employers' conduct is calculated to take the fight out of people and demonstrate to people that resistance is futile, and Star Trek, it's kind of like being assimilated by the Borg. You're going to be taken over by a business philosophy. Business first is what our ethics are going to be. The news last night about Trans-Pacific Partnership was kind of the drift of it was this is happening because of China. And we have to go with TPP, and Barack Obama wants fast-track authority. He wouldn't propose it if it was hurting anybody, but it looks like NAFTA around too for organized labor. So we have to bring that fight. And because of the conditioning in the workplace and the way Ohio State, at least as an employer, and many employers conduct themselves, workers have to be won back to their own sense of fight. A lot of people try to structure their lives so they never have to be brave and they never have to fight because they see a horrible world around them and they don't want to believe they have to be involved to change things. Kevin and I were talking about a section of our contract this week, and my discussions with people at work about it, they were enlivened a bit that there was some attention to their predicament. So I think in addition to sending people to boot camp and having all these sit-ins and events, which are very important to galvanize organized labor, it's important to reach out to your coworkers and uncover what their experience happens to be with the employer. Because a lot of people feel guilty and ashamed of what's happened to them in the workplace because they're overrun. I know in the OSU stores area, we are micromanaged and bullied. There's no doubt about it. It's mismanaged, it's disorganized, it's corrupt. And people are defeated in that kind of atmosphere and deprived of spirit that the labor movement typically brings back to people. And that's why we have to get people engaged and involved. We don't want to have people come in here and beat them up or scold them for their apathy or not being involved. We understand that that's a conditioning process conducted by employers. A lot of people aren't voting anymore. A lot of people don't come to union meetings. With what's going on in the economy, unions across the country, union halls across the country should be packed with people concerned about the one prospect they have for social change that's meaningful. So Kevin's absolutely right about talking to your coworkers. If they don't go along the first couple of times they talk to you, as we get closer and closer to contract, that's going to be happening. And I think it'll happen for organized labor. Workers' interests are way bigger than corporate interests. Society is not primarily for business and secondarily for everybody else. That's the corporate mindset. Workers have their own interests, and thanks everybody for coming. It's going to be a nice weekend, and I hope everybody gets involved as they can and gets their coworkers involved. And thanks to everybody for all this. This represents a lot of work. A lot of times with the infighting that's gone on in our election process, people in the workplace will act like the people in the union are fighting over the top spots. They don't really care about workers. It's all about workers and representation and basic democracy issues. It's the fabric of our society, really. I think the candidates here today expressed the knowledge of that. They could be more forthright, and were fairly frank with us. It was unusually good for the politicians that show up here. So thanks for setting all that up and working on it. And we got a serious negotiation team, in case people didn't know that. That's going on. I think everybody's earnest at that level too. So spread the word, and thanks for coming.